T.S. Eliot, the great American poet, said, "We shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated, but to know it for the first time." I paraphrase that, that's off a little. To know it for the first time. I think that T.S. Eliot might have been speaking about death, but I'm not. I think that we can come to know this place from which we originated, the place to which we return, all of us, by allowing this spark to become something bigger than just an occasional thing where you extend an act of kindness someplace, or you have it at the church or at the mosque or at the synagogue on a holy day or a holy observance, that it can become your way of being. There was a great teacher in India. His name was Vivekananda. Vivekananda came to the West as a young teacher, a very profound teacher. And he was asked the question, but how do you do this? How do you access this higher self? How do you make this your reality? And he said these words to his devotees, and I say them to you. He said, in the springtime, go out and observe the blossoms on the fruit trees. He said, the blossoms vanish of themselves as the fruit grows. And so too will the lower self, the false self, the ego, vanish as the divine grows within you. It's about allowing yourself to recognize you must have this spark because this is what you came from, and this is what you return to. And as this spark becomes a fragment and becomes a section and becomes larger and larger, you reach what I call in Wishes Fulfilled, the third chapter, the highest self. And what is the highest self? This is the one that's going to surprise you a bit. The highest self is the self that you haven't been trained to believe in. You've been trained to believe in your ordinary awareness. Your highest self is where you begin to recognize your connection to your source, to the Tao, to the divine, to God. There were three very important teachings that came to me before I put this program together and before I wrote Wishes Fulfilled. The first was a book by a man named U.S. Anderson, U.L.S. Anderson. Passed away in 1986. Very profound teacher. And he wrote a book called Three Magic Words, which I have had people tell me you must read. So it's fairly heavy reading, but the kind of reading that I love. And there's 12 chapters in the book. And you get to the 12th chapter and you keep waiting for the three magic words. Because he doesn't say what they are. And at the end of each chapter, there's a meditation. And in this meditation, you practice and put into the awareness within yourself of recognizing the highest place within yourself. And ultimately, at the very end, he said these words. Chapter 12, the very end of it. It's called The Veil Removed. This is the ineffable secret, the ultimate illumination, the key to peace and power. You are God. Those are the three magic words. If you will accept this towering truth and dare to stand atop this magnificent pinnacle, universal consciousness will be revealed to you from within. God is there. It is He who peers from behind your eyes, who is your own consciousness, who is your very self. You are not just a part of God, you are altogether God. And God is altogether you. Now, that's scary stuff for a lot of people. We weren't raised to believe that. I'm not saying that you ought to go out into the world and say, excuse me, but you know who you're talking to, that I am God. And the reason that we laugh is because we think of God as the God that we've created in our own image, the God of the ego, the God who's angry, the God who wants special favors, the God who has the ability to heal but withholds it. But there's another word that Jesus used in the New Testament, and this is the God I speak of, quoting him. God is love. And he that dwelleth in love dwelleth in me, and I in him. God is love. Pure, unconditional, blissful, divine love. That's who you are. The second great teaching was a man named Neville Goddard. Passed away in 1972. Lectured over in California, particularly in the 40s and 50s and 60s. I read his book, The Power of Awareness, 7 times. I gave it to each one of my children at Christmas a couple of years ago, and they called me up and they said, "Dad, it's great, but I don't understand it. It's a little heavy." I said, "Well, then maybe it's part of my dharma to make it a little clearer." And chapter 27, the last chapter of his book, The Power of Awareness, it says this: in all of creation, in all of eternity, in all the realms of your infinite being, the most wonderful fact is that which is stressed in the first chapter of this book. You are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers and prophets and mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. If you want to understand something intellectually, what you must do is analyze it, come up with a formula for it, study it, look at other experts about it, and come up to a conclusion. If you want to understand something spiritually, you must first experience it. You must come to know this within. In the New Testament, which I read completely before I wrote Wishes Fulfilled, Jesus is about to be stoned. And he says, "Why would you stone me?" And they say, "Because you blaspheme. You are a man, and you claim to be God." And Jesus responds in his words, "Is it not written in your laws that I have said you are gods?" All of you. We are all gods. We have within us, not the God that so often we are taught is outside of us, but the God that is love, the God that is perfect love, the soul that wants to expand because it is infinite and doesn't want to be restricted. And I came across some great teachings that were sent to me. They showed up, as we often think they show up as accidents, but you come to realize that there are no accidents in this universe. Everything that takes place have the pieces moved around by something bigger than all of us. And so it was called the I Am Discourses. And I quote from the I Am Discourses. The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either in spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is I am, recognizing its own conquering divinity. The student, me, you, all of us, endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws, must stand guard more strictly over his thoughts and expression, in words or otherwise. For every time you say, I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling that great presence within you.